Hey.
Hello, Jane.
Hey, hi, Sarah.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, and I've just realised when I came on that I'm not dressed very formally. I'm dressed in running clothes on the pretense that I'm going to do some exercise after this. So it's all smoke and mirrors. I'm going to pretend that I'm always exercising, but it's not true, obviously.
Well, you could have told me that you've just come in from a 5-mile
Yeah.
run. I don't believe you. So
It's not true. No, I couldn't lie, honestly. But I will try and do some exercise later, as that's what I'm always telling people is good for them. So yeah, got to live my message.
And you've got like a whole coordinating thing going on there with your background.
Well, obviously I plan that.
Yeah.
Or not.
I think we live the same kind of lives, actually, Jane.
Yeah, a bit hectic. Yeah.
So you are a menopause mentor as opposed to a menopause coach.
Yeah. I don't know what the difference is, if I'm honest, but I call myself a mentor because the two M's seem to go quite nicely together. And there are lots of different coaches around, and I've been a coach kind of on and off all my life, really, as an adult. And I just fancied calling myself something different, but I do kind of badge myself as the Peri Menopause Pragmatist. Right. Because I'm such a practical person. I'm not very spiritual or woo-woo. Not that I don't embrace those on behalf of other people, but it's not me.
Absolutely.
So I'm very practical. So people, in fact, I've just had a conversation with somebody that said, which is quite typical of people's initial response to me, is, why do you hate anything natural or spiritual? I went, whoa, hang on. I didn't say I hated any of those things, but it's just not my superpower. You know, that's not what I do.
Absolutely.
Plenty of people out there are fabulous at that, at those elements of support. It's not me. I'm going to point you in a different direction. And so that's kind of where I come from, just practical, really.
Okay, so if the whole pink and fluffy woo-woo, and I have to tell you that's not where I come from either. You can probably
brilliant.
If that's not where you come from, where do you come from? What is your focus?
So my focus, I come originally from many years ago in the year dot from a catering background. So that was sort of nutrition and catering. And then I went very much, and for many years, I was in the training world. And I worked very much with people with challenging situations, such as ex-offenders, apprentices, people with learning difficulties. So I've always been a practical person, but I had to be very pragmatic, because they don't need fluffy. The people who've just come out of prison really don't care if I'm being fluffy, not interested. So I had to really open up to the real person I was, rather than being Mrs. Corporate, which I've done as well, which I hated because it wasn't me. So, and I think a lot.
You and I.
We related, maybe.
Already? Oh, yeah. Which one?
So yes, I think we must be. Yeah. So I've kind of developed. I went from having a training company, into coaching, and some of that was involved with employability, but it very much became more about working with women, and it's sort of organically become, partly because of my own situation, because I'm 53 and I'm now fully menopausal. In my probably in my late 30s, actually, I became perimenopausal, and it became natural for me to embed, they always say, talk about what you know, so embed that into my coaching. And over the last perhaps 18 months, it's really honed down into a particular type of approach that I take, and I'm very comfortable with it, and the clients that I work with seem to really appreciate that and really benefit from it. Those that want to go down a different route of support for their perimenopausal symptoms, sometimes they'll still come to me, but I'll go, okay, I'm probably not for you. Let's send you that way. And that's absolutely fine. I'm really comfortable with that, because I would never want somebody to be with me if they didn't want to be with me. So my practical approach is all about, and I had a bit of a heated discussion with somebody about this today. It's all about, yes, let's have a moan. Let's say how awful we feel. Let's reel out those symptoms, because there's plenty of them to reel out. And then let's find a solution. So I'm not going to be the person that you moan to for the next year. I'm going to find a solution, and then I'm going to say, bye-bye, off you go. Really get on with your life. You don't need me forever. I'm not doing my job if I've made you reliant on me forever.
No, of course.
I mean, much as I'd love to take your money, there's just no point. You know, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting thing. I am also a woman of a certain age. I find this whole menopause thing really interesting because I have a single symptom, and that is I get warm occasionally. That's it. And I have friends who have fallen to pieces. And I kind of look and go, okay, that's startling. One of the most assertive and strong, and she's a woman I really, really admire, said she found herself crying in meetings. And I was like, and just, she said, just any sort of, anybody kind of answering something that she'd said, she felt it was a confrontation, and she had to give up work. And I'm like that.
I know.
I just get warm sometimes. You know, I have tropical moments sometimes.
Well, Sarah, you're annoyingly lucky, but I'm going to say well done. That's fabulous. However, there are two elements to the perimenopause which I really try to get across to people. That symptoms are one part, so there are 40 plus symptoms you can have, and I ticked off about 29 of those before I got myself sorted. Now the symptoms are I'll reel them off in a minute, but the symptoms are usually what brings women to me. So the overarching ones would be overwhelming fatigue, depression, low mood, tearfulness, whatever level, you know, end of the scale they are on that. Low libido, so we could go down the sex drive conversation if you wanted to, which is a completely different conversation, and general lack of motivation to do anything. So there are many more, but those are the ones that really get people and debilitate them and stop them being able to kind of function. And yes, unfortunately, relationships break down and people leave work, and lives can be destroyed unless we get a handle on them. So the other element is the sort of long-term health benefits of replacing that missing hormone, estrogen, which we all know about, hopefully. I shout from the rooftops about my advocacy of HRT, which either people will go, yay, or they'll go, you're from the devil, don't talk to us about that. So that's a massive conversation about whether HRT is going to kill you or whether it's going to make you better, or a mixture of the two, you know, over a period of your life. So my job is merely to inform. I'm not here to force anybody to take HRT, but I genuinely feel it's my duty to say, look, hear me out. Let me say it. Let me say what the benefits are, which are that the estrogen you're missing means that you no longer have that added protection from osteoporosis, dementia, cardiovascular disease, and many other nasties. So yes, we can help your symptoms. Let's assume you had, you know, 5 or 6 symptoms that you were really unhappy with natural complementary therapies. Yes, we can change your nutrition, change your exercise regime, get you some lovely supplements. And I'm all for complementary therapies. I'm all for supplements. I'm all for nutrition. I am a qualified nutritionist as well. So I'm fine with all that, but it's not going to solve your long-term health problems, or health issues in terms of the things I've just listed to you. So I try to persuade women, if they need persuading, and most don't, that I work hand in hand with the complementary therapist. So I really want women to take HRT because it's proven to help quality of life, longevity of life, and long-term health, but has a very low breast cancer risk. But that's not to say, as my ridiculous top demonstrates, that you don't need to exercise, you don't need to reduce your alcohol, and you don't need to eat well, and all those other things. So I don't hate the complementary therapist, but I don't talk to the universe either. So, you know, there's a balance to be had.
Very reasonable to me. Oh, very reasonable to me. I'm far too pragmatic for that. So I kind of feel like I've had a lucky escape, and I'm not at the younger end in perimenopause either. So with a bit of luck, that, you know, my tropical moments are it, which is quite exciting. if those are the main symptoms that people come to you with, what are the more obscure ones? Because from the conversation, obviously, I have a lot of friends who are my age. It's kind of how it works, isn't it? And
Yeah.
the conversations that I've had, actually fairly recently in a couple of cases, have had some absolutely shocking symptoms that I was like, okay, nerve damage and just, really quite scary stuff. So where the reason I'm asking you this, Jane, is that we can all Google the, gets tearful, gets tired, this.
Yeah.
It's when you begin to feel like you're the only one and you're going mad and it can't be menopause because it's something else. What are those symptoms like?
So while you were talking then, because there are so many of them, I tend to forget them. So I've just brought them up on my phone on my website because I forget them because they're so overlapping. And it's interesting that you phrase it like that, as you just did, Sarah, because a lot of the women will come to me, and I'm certainly not suggesting that this would be you, but they'll say, oh no, I'm fine. I don't really have many symptoms. I just think I should talk to you about it. So I'll say, okay, let me just reel off a few things. So I kind of reel them off. And let's say, for example, I said digestive issues. How's your digestion? And so they would say, oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah, my digestion has been a bit off. And I say, has it always been like that? No, just the last few years. Well, have you done anything about it? Well, no, I just assumed that was my age. And yeah, okay, so we'll tick that one off. So you've got that one. So after we have a lot of these symptoms, and we as women, and it is a kind of a female approach to life, we kind of absorb them and go, oh, that's fine. I'll just deal with that. It's all good. Yeah, I'm fine with it. And I did the same. I went, oh, well, my digestion's got a bit worse because I've always had a bit of a funny digestion. And my thyroid symptoms have got a bit worse, but I'm okay.
Thyroid symptom, what does that look like?
So I have an underactive thyroid, and the symptoms of an underactive thyroid can very much overlap with some of the symptoms of perimenopause, i.e. dry skin, fatigue, extreme tiredness, putting on weight, low mood. Unfortunately, an underactive thyroid often starts around about your 40s, and most of the people with underactive thyroid are women. So you can see that there's a bit of a, what is it? Perimenopause? Is it thyroid? Often it's both. And in my case, it was both. So, so for me, I wasn't sure whether my thyroid medication was okay or what was going on. And it only took some real investigation on my part to realize, that even though I was in my late 30s, early 40s, I was most definitely perimenopausal. But in answer to your question, I digress. Symptoms. So obviously flushes, but what hot flushes, but what a lot of people don't realize is there are also cold flushes. So you often get cold chills either just before or just after a hot flush, which is very annoying because if you've had a hot flush and you're all sweaty, then you get cold and you've got that sort of layer of sweat on you, which sounds gross, but it makes you feel even colder. So that's a simple one. Digestive issues, as I've mentioned, is a big one because the digestion will often slow down during perimenopause with the reduced estrogen. And if you didn't have digestion problems before, you may find that you're struggling a little bit more with constipation or the opposite. Here's one that I didn't know until I looked into it years ago. Bleeding gums is an interesting one. So that's quite a diverse one. So a lot of women don't realise, and certainly a lot of dentists don't know, that when we hit perimenopause, our gums are more likely to bleed and recede. So you'll have it in the neck from your dentist for having receding and bleeding gums when you're doing your absolute best to look after your teeth. But actually your body's fighting that with the lowered estrogen, and you're struggling then to keep a healthy set of gums. So it's not your fault, it's just a thing, it's just happening. So inability to concentrate, brain fog, whatever you want to call it, all of that. One that I struggled with, which is one that I'd never heard of in the early days, was some people call it electric shock feelings. Some people call it buzzing. I referred to it as like a buzzing feeling. And it feels like all your nerve endings, it's not painful, but it feels like all your nerve endings are sort of jangling. And so it's very irritating. It's like you have bees buzzing on the ends of your nerve endings. And it's very, disorienting as well because it's a constant. So I could go on for a long time, but I'm sure
because
there are so many symptoms.
That last one, I have an odd thing that happens at night, and I can't describe it, but it's kind of in my thorax and abdomen, and it's just this weird sensation that actually, if you were pressing me, I would say sort of feels a bit buzzy, and it only happens.
There you go.
Absolutely. Yes, that's curious. So it happens about once a week or something, but it's a very when it happens, it's very familiar. I'm like, oh, he's doing that thing again.
Yeah.
And I couldn't describe it, but there you go.
But actually, and it's interesting, but if you'd said that to another woman who was experiencing that sort of feeling, her feeling would be quite different to that. She'd say, oh, that's not the same as mine. But it's probably exactly the same. It's just that you're experiencing it differently. So I feel my job is to, and I was explaining this to somebody the other day, that my job is to kind of listen to all that's going on and just join the dots, because, much as the doctors do the best they can, they've got 10 minutes to see you. Some of them don't know anything about menopause, and they admit they don't know anything about menopause. So they don't have the time or the energy most of the time to get to the nub of what the problem is and to join those dots. What I like to describe it as is me pulling it all together, joining the dots, and then just slotting it all together into hence my this side, my little puzzle, this thing, no, this side, the little puzzle there, just kind of slotting it all together and going, okay, so this isn't going to be a magic fix today, but this is what I want you to do now, and then I want to see you or speak to you in a week or two or whatever it is, and let's go on to phase 2, because it has to be a layered approach in dealing with our problems. A lot of women, and men actually, but women will decide that if they've used HRT, for example, for a week and it's not worked, then HRT doesn't work and I'm doomed to live a life of misery. Well, that's kind of not really practical. So I need to manage their expectations and say, look, right at the beginning of the process, this is going to take perhaps a few months, and you're going to have to ask me a couple of questions along the way, but we'll get there. So just hang on in there. You're doing a good job. And that has to be the message all the way through, rather than this negative. I know it's a negative time for many women, and it is, and I was one of those women, and it feels so difficult. But I think if we can just know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, we don't have to feel that way, then it's all good as far as I'm concerned.
So what I'm hearing here is that women who are struggling for some reason can come to you, have a really practical conversation with somebody who clearly doesn't shock, which is, we get embarrassed, don't we? I mean, I don't. I'm not the type of person that gets particularly embarrassed.
No.
That there are lots of people who kind of go, well, it's this really, really personal thing, and they can come and they can have a let's get it all out in the open conversation with you, from kind of soup to nuts of this entire experience. And then working on a program. This isn't a happily ever after, always working with Jane. This is a process to help women get through, basically have as good a menopause as it's possible to have.
Absolutely. And I think what I try to do is, I think I do this with almost every single woman, is I always say, look, I'm not going to answer all your lengthy messages, because that would be terrible of me to say, oh, well, this is your problem, even though just on a message. And loads of women send me, huge messages. And I just say, look, just hop on a free call with me. Please don't write me any more messages. So let's just have a quick 15-minute call. It costs nothing. Sometimes that call is enough. I am really happy if after 15 minutes and they've paid me no money, they go, thank you so much, Jane. You've made me feel normal. You've told me what to do. See you. Bye. I'm really happy with that. But sometimes, and I'd say perhaps, 60% of the time, women will say, great, I'm going to do what you suggest, and then I'm going to book a session with you. So most often it's a 1-hour session. Again, sometimes that's enough. And then we just go, fine, you're sorted. If you need me, you know where I am. Sometimes it's a program. So sometimes it'll be a 4-week or a 6-week program. Other times it will be perhaps one more session, and then we've kind of tweaked everything we need to, and we're all good. And the message being that you have reached a point where you feel like yourself. I'm not trying to help you to reach to be a person that you weren't before. I want you to be the person you want to be. You're not going to be like you were when you were 20, and who would want to be fair. But you're going to be the best. No, absolutely not. And you're going to be the best you were before perimenopause started. And so, yeah, we're getting older. You may still have a few achy joints. You're still going to get poorly. You're still going to have problems in your relationship if it was going to happen anyway. But you're not going to have the added pressure of symptoms that make you feel like you're going crazy, symptoms that make you feel like you can't get out of bed, and symptoms that make you feel like you want to throw up on a daily basis. So all of those things can just be removed, or at least reduced significantly, whether that's HRT or not. And as I say, mostly I'm kind of HRT advocate, but there are plenty of other bits we can tag on if somebody just wants a few bits of advice.
Yeah. Okay, that all sounds really reassuring. I'm thinking, I've got a couple of friends I might send your way.
Please.
Well, it's so interesting because, like I say, as somebody that now know I have two symptoms. I have this weird sensation thing that happens a couple of times a month, and just random. It's not, and my getting warm but not sweaty. Just get very, very hot, very, very quickly, and then it goes ever so quickly. But oh my God, if I'm wearing a jumper when that happens. In fact, let me tell you a really funny. This is personal, but it is funny. So my partner, Paul, and I were sitting in my kitchen 3 years ago. My daughter was 16 at the time, and she'd just gone upstairs to bed. We were sitting at the kitchen table still having a conversation, and I had a hot flush, and it was winter, and I just went like that and took my t-shirt and my jumper off and dumped it on the kitchen table, and was like in my bra going, gosh, and as I did it, I heard her coming back downstairs.
Yikes.
And I looked at this jumper and kind of t-shirt all inside out each other, and looked at it for a bit and thought, there are two things going to happen here. Number one, she's going to see me wrestling my clothes back on. Or number two, I'm just going to brazen it out.
You brazened it out, didn't you? I knew it. I knew it.
She was absolutely horrified.
Yeah, what's the problem? Yeah. What's
she went, I said, sorry, I got hot.
Brilliant. What a great way to deal with it, though. And I think that is the message I do try to get across to women is, whether it's your family, your friends, or whoever it is, it's just normal. I mean, I say words associated with perimenopause. I'm not even sure whether you want me to say them on this live, but I say the word vagina at least 5 times a day, if not more. And it was, bless her, I had one woman message me. Oh no, it was on a call the other day, and she said, "Oh, I just want to talk to you about my period." She said, "Oh no, I know that's a bit rude." She said, "Oh no, I shouldn't say that." I went, literally, you can say that. I promise you. There's a lot worse people have said to me. No, and I said, honestly, it's absolutely fine. So I think I'm now getting a reputation for that person you can literally say anything to, and people talk to me about their sex lives, or lack of. They talk to me about their inability to have sex because their vagina is so sore, and it's just like, oh God, there's so much I could go into. And a lot of women think, oh, that's just normal. I'm just older now, so it's fine to feel so horrible down below. Really isn't. It's just not fine at all. And I think part of the problem is that because the GPs generally don't know what to do with these ladies who are in perimenopause, they're given incorrect advice. And if anybody watching this takes only one thing away from this live, I would love it to be, if your doctor offers you antidepressants for perimenopausal symptoms, please say no. I'm not saying you don't need antidepressants, because that's a separate conversation, but you do not need them for your perimenopausal symptoms. You need to get your hormones under control, and if you need antidepressants, then that's a completely separate conversation, but it's likely your mood will change.
Yeah, and it comes later. It doesn't come first.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not your first port of call. And I would say 80% of the women I talk to have been offered antidepressants. That is just a guess, but a huge percentage of them. And a lot of them, I will say to them, look, this is what you need to say to your doctor. And they'll say, okay, no antidepressants, fine. And they come back and they go, yeah, he gave me antidepressants. I'm like, oh God, please don't take me antidepressants. Because then you're in a loop of taking something that you rely on that probably isn't doing the job it's meant to. And, you know.
So that you just said something there that was quite interesting. You said, he had given you antidepressants.
I knew you'd pick up on that. Well, interestingly enough, quite often it's a male doctor, but I am not here to slate male doctors because, surprisingly enough, there are plenty of female doctors who, and I spoke to 2 clients yesterday who gave me some real horror stories about female doctors. Plenty of female doctors have no sympathy and no empathy and no knowledge of what to do with women in menopause. I had one client yesterday who was, I would say, verging on being suicidal. That's how bad it can get for some women. She wasn't suicidal. I was still able to talk to her and not have to refer her on to anybody. But she said she was in tears to this doctor, this female doctor, and the doctor said, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of, I don't know what you're worried about. The rest of us manage with symptoms. Just get a grip. And put the phone down on her. So that was obviously a telephone conversation. And I just went, I am so sorry that you've had to experience that. That is, apart from it being completely unprofessional, is terrible, terrible advice, because you don't have to put up with those symptoms. If you're feeling that bad, there are ways to remedy that.
That I can't think of a situation in life where get a grip is good advice.
I know, yawn. It's just so, every time a client or a lady that I'm speaking to on a free call says something like that to me, and there are plenty of similar examples, I can't help but roll my eyes. And I always say to her, look, I'm not rolling my eyes at you, I promise. I am absolutely frustrated on behalf of you. I can't believe I'm hearing this again. So yeah, I know there are a lot of campaigns out there to try to get some more education for GPs, and it's not actually their fault in a lot of cases. They just haven't been taught, they haven't been given the chance to learn more about menopause. They've got better things to do probably. But during lockdown, I've noticed it's been much more prevalent because GPs don't have time for menopause. But what they should do is have time, because one, it will stop women having severe mental health issues in many cases, but also it stops women wasting the NHS's time, quite simply, because they're not back and forth to the doctor all the time. They have their HRT, they're sorted, bosh, done.
Jess has just put a comment. She said, I've had similar experience with female doctors when giving birth, but that's a whole other conversation. Female doctors can be very unsympathetic or unempathetic. And I think it's slight moving away here, but when I was pregnant, I had hyperemesis, both pregnancies, which is severe vomiting. It didn't go away in the second pregnancy. It was horrible. And I spent time going into hospital and being rehydrated and then coming out and going back in. It was like a revolving door thing. And on one admission, there was a young nurse on the ward who said to me that there was nothing wrong with me that a positive attitude wouldn't solve. And
it's so common.
He was probably 12 years younger than me. I was 36. And I looked at her and I just thought, honestly, what I thought was off. I didn't say that. So yes, you can definitely say vagina. Just saying.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. There are, and in fact, I'm connected with a couple of people, although I don't work in this particular sector. I work alongside a few people, mainly on Instagram actually, but who work in the birth trauma sector. It's not my area of specialism. I had a bit of birth trauma myself, but not anywhere near what some people have been through. So I have some empathy and understanding, but it's absolutely astounding how some women have been treated, and a lot over the years. And a lot of the women, or a significant number of the women who come to me about perimenopause, have some element of a birth trauma story. And I'm not there, obviously, to fix their birth trauma story, of course, but it's a well-known fact. It's actually proven that women who've had postnatal depression are more likely to suffer with perimenopausal symptoms. So they're more severe, perimenopausal symptoms. So I had postnatal depression. I didn't know at the time, obviously, that I would suffer a little bit more with perimenopause, but obviously now I realise that I was probably a prime candidate to really struggle, and I did. But yeah, I had the same unsympathetic midwives with my 2 children, and my son weighed 11.5 pounds. So let's say I wasn't feeling too great about it. So
bloody hell, that's huge. That's a
yeah.
big
Yeah, he was quite big. Yeah.
Okay, well, on that finishing bit of information, we've been talking for more than 30 minutes.
Oh, well, I've enjoyed every minute of it, Sarah. It's been lovely.
That was amazing. Now, I know we have is it called a ticker tape thing going across the bottom of the screen?
Oh, yeah, thing, yeah.
Want to draw attention to. I've put your website there, menopausalnotmad.co.uk.
Yes, thank you.
And you are very happy for any woman who wants to have a chat,
anybody,
get hold of you and do so. Okay.
Drop me an email, and if you're on Facebook, you can just message me. I'm there.
Jane, that was hugely interesting. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been super. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, really nice to talk to you. Bye.
You too. Take care. Bye.